Michael is an ex-executive of eBay, so that's where he's been for the last 6 years. And I come from a performance advertising background. And what we did with AdJug was basically merge the idea of a trading platform with advertising. So if you were to imagine a system where people who own websites could sell their ad space directly to advertisers who want to buy it. So websites, regardless of how big or small you are, as you can imagine, there's billions and billions of websites out there. Not each and every one of them can't afford to put a salesperson on the ground and send them into every single advertiser. So what we've built is a technology platform that forms a meeting place for publishers to sell their ad inventory directly to advertisers. And I guess it's a sort of merger of our core competencies as people. I think we have the same one.
Yeah, we like Warren Buffett. And I think Warren Buffett is someone who many people know as an amazing investor. But if you actually read through his biography, you'll find that in deep in the heart, he is an entrepreneur. He started a very small partnership, which was an entrepreneurial venture. He took something that he knew he was very good at and turned it into an amazing value proposition. And I think what I love about him, he once said, being an investor makes me a better businessman, and being a businessman makes me a better investor. And I think this is what you have to remind yourself all the time when you're an entrepreneur. You're not just executing an operational task for the sake of the task. You are an entrepreneur. That means you want to create value for yourself and for other people.
Never to hire too many senior people too quickly. Right? I think that's probably one thing we learned quite early on. You often think that you need to get the biggest and the best people in rather than sort of recruiting fresh people and getting a fresh perspective on it. So I'd say that's one lesson we've learned certainly from this experience.
Looking back now at the time when we started AdJug, I learned that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. When you're in a dark tunnel and you can't see what's coming, you have to remind yourself it will get better. There's always light. It was very difficult for me at the beginning to absorb the risk that's associated with starting something completely new. And I think if I look back now, the valuable lesson for me was you have to stay calm, you have to be patient. As Satish always says, there's no fast forward button. So you have to go through these phases, and you have to remind yourself that you will succeed, because you are just looking for the right value proposition, and it just takes time.
It was actually from somebody who sits on our board, who actually told us, Seb Bishop, who was the founder of eSpotting, a company I used to work for. And his line was, never sit around, never sit on decisions. Always make a decision. It might be wrong, it might not, it might be right. But just sitting on them and procrastinating over them means that people who want to do things are otherwise sitting there waiting for you to make this decision. So one very valuable piece of advice that we all try to follow is when it lands on our desk and something needs to get done and people have come to us for a decision, we try to make it as quickly as we can. I would certainly say, and I think you'd agree, I think when we actually raised our second round of funding for about €3.5 million, in a market where people were saying valuations are going down, the recession is coming, etc., etc., I think the value of the AdJug proposition and the business that we had created, the energy of the company and the people that were working there, just shone through to our investors. That despite everything that was going on in the market, we were able to raise what I would consider to be a substantial round. So I would certainly have to say that raising our second round of funding and having closed that deal was one of the proudest moments in our history.
I would still think that the recession is a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. A challenge because it's actually difficult to do business in an environment where people panic on a regular basis and make sometimes irrational decisions despite the fact that they can spend money and get some return on investment for it. It's an opportunity on the other hand, because I think that in an environment where people need to make their marketing spend work harder for them and get sooner return on investment for any kind of marketing spend, I would say that online in general is in a good position, and specifically the part of online marketing where you measure how much return you actually get for your money is in an even better position. And that's the segment we are in. And that's why I feel that despite many other businesses going through a very, very rough time, we are holding up very, very well. I think that there is a good entrepreneurial culture in the UK, but you wouldn't imagine the things that you're up against as an entrepreneur before you actually jump into a venture, with regards to the amount of regulations, the amount of bureaucracy that you have to go through. Also the lack of startup resources that you have. If you look at into different regions of the world where there is a strong entrepreneurial culture, for example Silicon Valley, I think the UK still has a lot to learn and has a lot to develop.
I think the valuations you get as an internet business are also completely different. If you're working in America, because the addressable market is so much bigger, as a company with a good idea, you're naturally worth more money. So one of the big issues, I suppose, is as being in the UK and this being a smaller market, for our proposition to truly work, we need to cross boundaries and languages and currencies in order to sort of come up to the same scale of a business as something in the US would naturally get. And that's a hell of a lot more work, some would argue, for sort of less return. So that I think is a big challenge in itself. But that's just one of the things we knew about and we decided to jump into anyway. So if I was to sort of play out our vision, I would say we would probably be in a situation where we've opened offices across Europe, and we're a trading entity in all those areas, and we're recognized as the leading player in the ad exchange space in Europe.
Definitely, Europe is our major playground, and I think in 5 years' time, some markets that are at the moment, let's say, a little bit early, I think will then have come into major fruition. So I can imagine, I can see us also venturing into other parts than just Western Europe. So I think we'll definitely have probably a very similar value proposition, but I think the value proposition will have played out in many different areas. There will be new technology available, it will be new geographies. I think we will have a new organizational structure. So I think we see big growth potential, and also I think I reckon that we'll have an accelerated pace of development once we have reached the bottom of this recession.